Yes.
Same representative.
Hi, Donna. Yeah, I thought I recognized you from their street. All the dark suits and ties.
Very smart.
But this is just the right thing.
Good evening. I'm David Wilson. I'm President and CEO of the Walla Walla Valley Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome all of you to our business after hours, where you get a chance to mix with it. I want to welcome you all to our Sheriff's Debate. The Chamber is a 700-member business advocacy and promotion organization, and many of you are members that are here. And so we advocate on behalf of the business community. One important part of that is in the area of public policy. And we're very serious about making sure that the business community is represented in the political process, working with elected officials, and making sure that there's the voice of business that's represented in a lot of different kinds of formats. And so it's one of our key roles. Obviously, having a healthy and vibrant business climate is very, very important to the business community, and having the issue of public safety is also a very important element of that. And so we thought it was very appropriate that the Chamber host a debate for the candidates for the position of sheriff. It is obviously the role of the Walla Walla County Sheriff plays a very central role in the issue of public safety, and it is something that is very, very important to the Chamber and its members as well. I will say that the Chamber does not endorse any specific candidates. Our job here tonight is really to provide a forum and to so folks have an opportunity to hear and meet the candidates and respond to a series of questions, and that's what tonight's really all about. So first I want to thank all of you for coming, braving adverse conditions. I also want to thank each of the candidates for first participating, and also just the service for all of you that you've done in your careers on behalf of the community, which is greatly appreciated. As I mentioned, public policy is a very important part of what we do, and I'd like to introduce a colleague at the Chamber, Damian Sennett, is our VP of Public Policy, and he will take you through a little bit more of some of tonight's specific kind of rules and mechanics about the debate, and as well as introduce our moderator. So please, Damian Sennett.
Thank you, David, and it is absolutely great to see all of you here tonight. Thank you for coming. As David said, my name is Damian Sennett. I'm the Vice President of Public Policy and Business Development at the Walla Walla Valley Chamber of Commerce. And one of my favorite parts of my job is organizing debates like this one every election cycle. We've been doing it for about 6 years now, and it's always gone very smoothly. I think it's a great service to the community and a good way to get some information out about each of the candidates running for office. So, if tonight goes smoothly, if you enjoy the debate, remember my name, Damian Sennett. If there are any problems, if there's anything you don't like, that was Wolson. W-O-L-S-O-N. In all seriousness, we have a great debate lined up for you tonight. We have 3 candidates, all of whom are incredibly passionate about the Walla Walla Sheriff's Department, and all have voluntarily stepped up to seek an elected public service position. They all have their differences, they all have different supporters, but I think they all deserve our thanks and respect for voluntarily tossing their hat into the ring for public service. So if we could just start by giving them all a round of applause. So in the interest of time, I'm not going to talk terribly long. I would like to take a few moments just to go over the rules of tonight's debate so that you know what's going on. I've explained them to the candidates, but they're probably going to listen again just to make sure we're all on the same page. We will be starting tonight's debate with opening statements. Each of the candidates will have 2 minutes to deliver their opening statements. After openings, we'll move into a series of questions that we prepared in advance They have not been sent to the candidates, so they haven't seen them. These are questions that we solicited from the public and from our membership. We vetted them in advance to make sure that they were appropriate and on point, and they are. We have about 10 questions that we will ask each of the candidates. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to those questions. We'll simply work our way down the line. And after everybody has responded, they'll each have they will each have 1 minute for rebuttal if they so choose. The second part of the debate is another series of questions. And what we did is I asked each of the candidates to submit a question that they would like the moderator to ask each of their opponents, which they did. And so each of our candidates will have 2 questions, one from each of their opponents. It will be directed only to them, and they will have 1.5 minutes to respond to each of those questions. There will be no rebuttal. When we're done with those questions, we will move into closing statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for closing. We have a very full evening. We have a lot of questions to ask, and we will not have time to take questions from the audience, so I need to let you know that in advance. I will tell you that if tonight goes like other nights, our candidates will likely congregate in the back hall after the debate, and they'll probably be willing to answer questions if you have them. Just hold on to them, but do not wave your hand. I won't be bringing a mic around for you during the debate. The last thing I would ask of you is, I know many of you are enthusiastic supporters of one of the candidates, probably. I would ask that you hold on to your enthusiasm and hold on to your applause until the end of the debate, and we'll have a great time for you to show your support for each of the candidates. If you applaud after each candidate responds to each question, you will be here a very, very, very long time. The last point I made, as I outlined the rules of the debate, you know that we have a lot of time limits. I will be sitting in the front row with a stopwatch. I have time cards I will be holding up so the candidates know how much time they've used and how much time is left and when their time has expired. I was once told by my mother that it's never polite to interrupt somebody when they're speaking. She tells me, however, that tonight is an exception to that rule. So I have asked our moderator to cut candidates off at their knees if their time expires. I've said that they can finish their sentence, no more. If they are like my favorite author, Ernest Hemingway, and they have a tendency to have sentences that have 47 subparts with commas and semicolons, they will be cut off at their knees. So that's the rules of the debate. They all know them. I think they understand them, and they will be smooth. Speaking of our moderator, we have a great moderator for our debate tonight. He is a well-respected lawyer in the community. He is known for his honesty, his professionalism, his straightforward, common-sense approach to issues, his unwavering integrity, his biting wit, and his dry sense of humor. He also happens to be the president of the board for the auspicious Walla Walla Valley Chamber of Commerce. So if you please help me welcome Tom Scribner to the stage to moderate our debate tonight.
Until he said my name, I thought he was talking about someone else. I just wanted to echo what Damien said about the time, gentlemen. Damien and I are going to be timing Nazis this evening, and we will cut you off, so please watch his flashcards for 1 minute, 30 seconds, and time. Are you 3 gentlemen ready to debate this evening? Yes, we are. All right, we will then get it on, starting with opening statements. We randomly selected names out in the hall rather than proceeding alphabetically, and we are going to go first. Mr. Cooper will have 2 minutes, followed by Mr. Blackman 2 minutes, and then followed by Mr. Turner. So we're beginning our debate with opening statements. Mr. Cooper, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much.
Is it on? It is on.
Thank you very much.
That's 15 seconds.
Thank you very much, everyone, for coming out. I appreciate such a great turnout. really looking forward to being able to discuss the public safety issues with you tonight. I'd like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring this event. I'd like to thank Mr. Scribner as well, and Sheriff Turner and Sergeant Blackman. I am Tom Cooper, candidate for County Sheriff. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I was born and raised in Everett, Washington. I moved to Walla Walla in 1982 after accepting an athletic scholarship, which is where I met my college sweetheart, who is in the audience. We were married in 1984 at St. Patrick's Church, and we recently celebrated our 30-year wedding anniversary. Jenny and I raised and educated our children in this community. I care deeply about Walla Walla, and I'm passionate about law enforcement. Quite frankly, I have deep concerns about the direction that the Sheriff's Office is heading right now. Politics, in my opinion, has no business in public safety. I've been a member of the Sheriff's Office for 25 years, first as a correctional officer, and then a supervisor, then as a deputy sheriff and a patrol supervisor. I believe the following Washington State training and certifications, along with Walla Walla County specific law enforcement experience, uniquely qualify me for the position of county sheriff. I was a certified field training officer for 12 years and then the program coordinator. I was a certified canine handler for 7 years, a certified first line supervisor, a criminology, I have a degree in criminology. I've completed criminal justice training academies and 1 international academy. I have experience with small business. I have working knowledge of the current expense and law and justice budgets, president of the Fraternal Order of Police, and the Walla Walla Commission Deputy Sheriff's Association for over 13 years. Lastly, it is important for me to understand that I view myself as a public servant, not a politician. You deserve a sheriff you can trust, and I look forward to sharing more with you during the evening tonight. Thank you.
We're going to hold our applause. Thank you. Ms. Blackman.
Good evening. I too would like to thank everyone for attending this forum and giving us a chance to each of us explain why we think we're the best candidate for to be the sheriff for the next 4 years. About me, I was born and raised here in Walla Walla. I've lived here all my life. I began working here on the farm, went to school here when I was 17. I went into the Marine Corps, and I served in the Marine Corps for 4 years, becoming very expert at the job that I did in the Marine Corps, which was an avionics technician. After I left the Marine Corps, I answered an ad that was looking for jail staff at what was then the brand new Walla Walla County Jail. I was hired as the #1 pick out of the 14 that were picked up on that in that hiring phase. I worked at the county jail for 9 years. I was trained in not only the corrections work, but I also learned how to fix the locks at the jail, and I was the one that maintained all those locks for the next 20 years. In 1991, I went out on the road, soon joined the detective's office, and shortly after that got promoted to sergeant, which is what I do now. I'm currently a patrol supervisor, just as Tom Cooper is, and I've worked on the road for 20 years. So that's about it. Thank you.
Mr. Turner, your opening statement.
Thank you. And thank you again to the Chamber of Commerce for this opportunity. My name is John Turner, and for the past 3.5 years, I've had the privilege of being your sheriff. It's been a wonderful 3.5 years, and I feel very blessed every day. My great-grandfather homesteaded a farm here in the 1870s. I'm the 4th generation on that farm, and it's still in existence today. And I have a tremendous reverence and respect for the hard work that went on at that farm, because I'm well aware that it's that hard work that provided me with many of the opportunities that I've had during my lifetime. The opportunity to go to college and get a bachelor's degree in public administration, learning how to run criminal justice organizations. The ability to go to DCI, the Delinquency Control Institute, and study juvenile justice issues. The ability to get a job at the LAPD and have a good career at the LAPD, where I served in a number of different capacities. And while I was at the LAPD, I had the opportunity to go back to law school and learn a law degree at night. Upon retiring from the LAPD, I became an attorney, and my sole practice was the representation of law enforcement agencies. So I have a lot of experience in critical incidents and labor law. In 2008, I met my wife Jackie, who's also fourth generation of her family farm here in Walla Walla County. And I met her when she was in the 7th grade and I was in the 8th grade and she was at Garrison. And we moved home in 2004, and in 2008 I had the opportunity to receive a top secret clearance and be vetted fully and in bed with the United States Army as a counterterrorism investigator and work in Iraq alongside of some of America's finest men and women. And in 2010, you elected me as your sheriff. In the last 3.5 years, we have accomplished a lot together, the community and the sheriff's office and all the great men and women that work there. It's been a wonderful opportunity and a great time, and I'm looking forward to doing it again for another 4 years if I'm given the opportunity. Thanks very much.
We will begin our questions now. I'm going to make the executive decision. As Damien said, this is the 4th debate that I've attended, and at the other 3, there was any opportunities for rebuttal. We were allowing the candidates this evening to have 1 minute of rebuttal time. However, this first question really doesn't, it seems to me, warrant a rebuttal, so I'm going to say for the first question, no rebuttal. But this is the question, and we will answer it first Mr. Turner, then Mr. Blackman, and then Mr. Cooper. And the question is as follows. Each of you want to be sheriff of Walla Walla County and want us to vote for you, not your opponents. Most of us, I assume, don't exactly know what it is the sheriff does. You do not, we assume, do much patrolling. You do not, we assume, spend much time working in the county jail. Tell us, please, with specific examples, just what it is the sheriff of Walla Walla County does or should do. Give us a job description.
The job of sheriff is a Washington State constitutionally created position. It's in Section 5 of the Washington State Constitution. The duties of the sheriff are enumerated by the state legislature in the RCW, the Revised Code of Washington. Those duties are that the sheriff will be the chief executive officer of the county, and that he will also be the chief constable of the county to keep the peace. So the primary goal and function of the sheriff is to keep peace within the county. In doing so, there are many job responsibilities. We do go out and handle calls for service, and I go out and I back the guys on high-risk incidents, and there is sometimes that it warrants being in the jail. But on top of that, you are the chief administrator. You run the sheriff's office. As an elected official, you're an autonomous person answering directly to the people. So on a daily basis, you're doing anything from handling citizens' questions and inquiries and complaints via phone and email, to handling complicated labor law issues, to handling complaints, to working on a myriad of things. The sheriff, as the chief executive officer of the county and the chief constable, really forms the vision and the mission and the direction for the sheriff's office. His job is to lead by example, to show the men and women that work there proper law enforcement protocols and procedures, to develop policy, to pay attention to state Supreme Court and United States Supreme Court case decisions, and always ensure that the policies and the procedures of the sheriff's office are in accordance with law. And that is an ongoing process because, as you know, the law is changing all the time. So there's labor law issues, there are criminal investigation issues, there are patrol deployment issues, there are personnel issues. We work closely with the community, we work closely with different elected officials, particularly the risk manager, the personnel director for the department, or for the county. Her department we work with all the time. So there's a myriad of responsibilities that the sheriff assumes.
Including timing issues. Thank you very much. Mr. Blackman, 2 minutes.
The sheriff's duties, of course, he's the administrator, or the CEO, so to speak, of the sheriff's office itself. He's the one that makes sure that all of his deputies are trained in accordance with the standards that are set by the state. He is also the one who's in charge of the jail to make sure that the jail runs smoothly and that we don't have a lot of problems in the jail, that those officers who work in corrections are also trained and that they administer their job correctly. The sheriff, one of the things that a lot of people don't realize, the sheriff is the long arm of the court. When the Superior Court issues an order or a directive of some kind, it's the sheriff who usually has the responsibility to carry that order out. That includes recouping or recovering possession of premises or properties for owners when people are evicted, and it also includes getting property back when bills aren't paid. It includes serving all kinds of civil process for different court hearings such as lawsuits or criminal courts or any of that. So the sheriff's responsibility is wide and is deep. The sheriff is supposed to make sure that his sergeants are training their subordinates in their job and make sure that they apply the law equally and fairly, and that they use the discretion that they're given by the state of Washington very judiciously as well. Thank you.
Mr. Cooper, we hope we have a microphone now that works for you.
Well, as you've heard, the job of the sheriff is a tremendous responsibility. There are a number of different facets to the job. There are a number of different liabilities that are associated with the job of being sheriff. You've got to be spot on. You've got to make sure that your command staff is doing things in a manner that will not create additional liabilities for the county. The chief law enforcement officer of the county is the main title, but the sheriff is also responsible for running the jail division. We are now typically around 100 inmates in the jail. There are all different kinds of needs, medical needs, incarceration needs, needs to separate, for instance, one gang member from another so that we don't have additional problems and assaults in the jail. So the jail is a big part of that. That also has a lot of liability. Additionally, the sheriff is responsible for running the civil department. Civil department is responsible for the subpoenas, for the protection orders, and for a number of different other papers that we must get out to the public to advise them, for instance, when they need to be in court, or there's a number of different types of services. We've served typically in a year anywhere between 20 and 25,000 civil services to individuals throughout the county. Sheriff's office, like the sheriff said, keeps the peace, coordinates law enforcement services with the outside agencies. Leading by example, that's a given for the sheriff. That needs to happen. That will happen under my administration. I will assign a command staff that will carry out the vision and the mission and the goals of the sheriff's office and reduce the liability issues by being a sheriff that you can count on and a sheriff that you can trust. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Moving on to our second question, which is a follow-up to the question that you just answered. And that is, now that we know what it is the sheriff does, now that we have a job description, tell us what experience, what training, what talents you have that make you a better candidate for sheriff than your opponents. Why should we vote for you rather than them? And we will answer that question in this order. First, Mr. Blackman. Secondly, Mr. Cooper. Third, Mr. Turner. Mr. Blackman, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, my experience started in 1982 when I went to work for the county jail, and I learned a lot about how the justice system in this state works. I got to witness probably hundreds of trials over the 9 years that I worked at the county jail. So I got to see how the justice system works from the court's end of it. Then I went out on patrol, and of course the patrol brought me into contact with literally thousands of citizens in this county over the next 20 years. So that's my experience. My training, of course, is that training that's given to me by the state of Washington through the Criminal Justice Training Commission. And my talents include I'm a traffic collision reconstructionist. That's a very in-depth training into reconstructing traffic collisions. I've also taken training in arson and arson investigations. I was a detective for about 4.5 years before I got promoted to sergeant out of the detective's office. So I've taken part in solving more than one very serious crime, including homicide. And my experience and training and talents are all literally within this county and within this community. Thank you.
Mr. Cooper, you have 2 minutes to respond to that question.
Once again, thank you. I covered a lot of that in my opening remarks, but I guess I would like to say that, you know, I have unique qualifications, I think, that separate me from the other candidates in the sense that I've completed 3 Washington State certification academies. That is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about 1,500 hours of Washington State specific training. That's very, very important when it comes to Washington State law, Washington State criminal procedure, patrol procedures. I back that up with the training that I've had in Walla Walla County, and I believe that that's a very good mix to be able to have the Washington State specific training. I mentioned before that I was a correctional officer, so I've got the experience in the jail, a correctional supervisor. In the very beginning part of my career, I was actually a part-time cook. So if they have problems, you know, with their food, I can give them a hand over there, I suppose. Also, I didn't hear that, but anyway, then my patrol experience for as far as being a canine handler. That's a very important experience because I got to probably deal with the most dangerous specific types of calls, and what I learned about myself is that I do fairly well under pressure. And once you deal enough with those types of calls, you get better and better and better at it. I have been a certified first-line supervisor, but one of the things I'm most proud of is the fact that I was a training officer for our department for many, many, many years. And I got to train our officers from green, just starting, until they were patrol ready. And so I got to form a relationship with our deputies as kind of a mentor. And it's very rewarding. That lasts an entire career. So I think I have a very good rapport with our deputies as well. So thank you.
Mr. Turner, you have 2 minutes to respond to that question.
Thank you, Tom. Well, I'm going to break my answer down to education, experience, and local accomplishments. So when it comes to education, I have a law degree, which I think I apply each and every day. I have a bachelor's degree in public administration, and my emphasis was in criminal justice. I attended the Delinquency Control Institute, which is a master's level program, and studied juvenile justice issues. I also am a leadership Walla Walla graduate in 2007, learning about our community and the challenges that face it. I'm a Jennifer Dunn Leadership Institute graduate. I'm an FBI CJTC Criminal Justice Commission for this state command college graduate, learning how to be an executive in this state. I am a graduate of the Washington Criminal Justice Training Commission and a certified peace officer in this state. I'm also a graduate of the Los Angeles Police Academy and thousands of hours in service police training at numerous levels. When it comes to experience, I'm a retired Los Angeles police officer where I was a patrol officer, I was a field training officer, I was an investigator, I was an undercover investigator, I was a use of force peer member on review boards, and I worked in the administrative area representing law enforcement. As a police attorney, I specialized in labor law and critical incidents and represented numerous law enforcement agencies. In other words, I've worked with chiefs and sheriffs and entry-level people. I've seen things that work and I've seen things that don't. I bring all that experience to the table. I also was a law enforcement professional counterterrorism investigator for the Department of Defense embedded with the U.S. Army. As far as local accomplishments as your sheriff, I'm proud of what we've accomplished together as a team. On my watch, we've provided 24/7 coverage for the first time in the county. We've reestablished our patrol canine program with 2 donated dogs of citizen-donated money at no cost to taxpayers. I've partnered with the Walla Walla PD and other agencies for the Walla Walla Strategic Gang Initiative and also established quarterly Sheriff's Roundtable community meetings to serve you better, to come out into the community and learn how we can serve you better.
We're going to have rebuttal, but obviously you forgot to ask at the outset, and I'm doing it now. If you have not yet turned off your phone, please do so, and we'll not do that again. Each of you has 1 minute to rebut as you feel necessary or appropriate in the same order. Mr. Blackman, you have 1 minute to rebuttal of what you heard from your opponents.
Okay. I guess my rebuttal is a lot of the training that Sergeant Cooper here has, I've also received, and a lot of the experience that he has, I've also had. In fact, at the county jail, I was Tom Cooper's supervisor at one time. I was a supervisor as a patrol officer as well. So anyway, I've got a lot of that experience, although I don't have the certifications that he obtained because they didn't ask for certification for field training officer until, gosh, I think it was probably sometime in the mid-1990s or late 1990s. Thank you.
Mr. Cooper, he had to remind us that he was your supervisor. You have 1 minute for rebuttal.
I had much more hair back then, for sure. I want to respond to what the sheriff said, and I don't mean to get contentious right out of the gate, but I guess that's part of this process. You know, we've had a rough go. I'd probably categorize it as a bad dream over the last 3.5 years with the sheriff's office. And the type of leadership that the sheriff is providing is completely to the contrary of what I'm going to provide. We have he has investigated many of our officers, internal investigations. We've been sued. The county taxpayers have written checks. We're getting sued again. He states and talks about all of these different qualifications and labor attorney and stuff like that. It's not working. We are not able to avoid the liability pitfalls that are John Turner's administration. I'm going to provide better leadership, and that's my commitment to the taxpayers.
Mr. Turner, you have 1 minute for rebuttal.
Thank you. Well, for the past 3.5 years, I've been both these guys' supervisors. So, and in all seriousness, it's really been a privilege and an honor. I love my job. I love what we do. I love what we've accomplished together. Morale in the sheriff's office is good. I know that you'll hear, otherwise from my opponents. But things are good. We've accomplished a lot. We're catching bad guys, and we're putting people in jail, and we're making this a safer place. From 2012 to 2013, on my watch, doing what we're doing, crime was dropped 19.7%. That's significant. That doesn't just happen. And I'm proud of all that we have done. I bring my training and my experience and my background and everything that I've learned to the table, because there's no other place in the world that I would rather protect and serve a community that I love, and it's right here at home in Walla Walla County. So, thank you.
We'll answer the third question, gentlemen, in this order. Mr. Cooper first, followed by Mr. Turner, and then Mr. Blackman, and this is the question. Gang activity has been an issue in Walla Walla Valley for many years. It was an issue of concern during the election for sheriff 4 years ago. Over the last several months, there have been a number of violent gang confrontations reported in the press, including a stabbing, several shootings, and a murder. How would you assess how the Sheriff's Department has responded to gang activity over the past 4 years? What changes, if any, would you make or do you plan to make to deal with the problem of gang activity in the future? Mr. Cooper,
Sheriff's Office has responded very, very poorly, in my opinion, to gang activity. And part of the reason is because we do not have one bilingual officer in our entire department. In the last debate, the sheriff was talking about he couldn't wave a magic wand and make qualified Hispanics appear. Well, that's absolutely ridiculous. College Place Police Department had their top 3 candidates on their civil service list are bilingual Hispanic officers. The Walla Walla Police Department has 5 bilingual officers that have been employed there forever. The College Place Police Department makes $500 or $600 or $700 less than the sheriff's office. So why are we not able to attract Hispanic candidates? Because we haven't made it a priority. If we can't communicate to our Hispanic community, how in the world are we going to solve gang problems? It's just absolutely ridiculous. There's been no priority. One of my ideas is to get this reserve program going again and put a program in place where we can foster a good training and recruiting area for all officers and bilingual and Hispanic officers. But the first thing we have to do is we have to be committed to something and not just have talking points about crime is down this much or 24/7 coverage. Very briefly, I want to talk about 19% drop in crime is inaccurate. There's been a 19% drop in reported crime. And I want to talk to you a little bit more about this later. But Walla Walla County had 819 reported felony Part A type crimes, and the Sheriff's Office cleared 156 of those 819 cases. That is unacceptable. It's the lowest of any place around us, with the exception of Columbia County. We are clearing at a rate of 19%. Benton County clears at a rate of 50%. Franklin County clears at a rate of almost 40%. College Place Police Department clears at almost 40%. I'd like to talk to you more about that later. Thank you.
Mr. Turner, you have 2 minutes to respond to that question.
Well, I'm proud of the partnership that was started with Chief Chuck Fulton. It was his vision to adopt the work of Dr. David Kennedy for Operation Ceasefire, and since then we've partnered with schools, teachers, families, social services, the Youth Alliance. We reformed the Walla Walla Community Investors Group that meets, which I'm a part of. And all those efforts are to work on the gang activity and the gang issues in our community. This is not an issue that we can arrest our way out of. That's been proven over decades. I worked at gang unit in Watts in the late 80s, and we did not arrest our way out of the problem. We need to reach out in front and work with educators and families to get ourselves. This is a community problem that we work very hard on. Yesterday I was at a meeting with the Walla Walla Public School Boards presenting the Youth Alliance initiative for their strategic efforts, and it's been very effective. We've held 2 gang call-ins. The new police chief, Scott Bieber, and I have formed a really good partnership in this arena, and we've done a very good job. It is one of our top focuses to provide that type of security in our community. As far as, so what I'm talking about is having a prevention column and an intervention column and a strong zero tolerance column. So when it comes to the zero tolerance column, that's usually what we do in law enforcement is enforce laws and go out and catch bad guys. When we had a murder, it went from a complete whodunit, not even knowing who the victim was, in January of this year, and we had 3 suspects in custody in Spokane within 6 days. I think that is wonderful police work, and we built a very strong case. That's the type of zero tolerance for that type of activity you can count on from your sheriff's office, and that we've provided. As far as Latino officers, I have here that every single civil service commission listing since I've been sheriff, and unfortunately there's not one single Latino name on it. The Civil Service Commission is responsible for the initial testing. We just hire applicants that are on the list. Wish I could share.
Mr. Blackman, you have 2 minutes to respond to that question.
Since I came on the road in 1991, gang activity has been one of the forefront problems that we've dealt with. We've partnered with the Walla Walla Police Department on many occasions as far as backing them on calls where we've had shootings and we've had stabbings and other gang-related violence. We used to provide security at the community fairgrounds, or the Fairgrounds Community Center, when they would have their quinceañeras, and we got to see a lot of the gang problems there, and we got to address a lot of them there, and I can't express enough gratitude for the help of the Walla Walla Police Department, who used to send their gang officers over there to kind of look over the crowd and help us spot the troublemakers and make sure that we kept them under surveillance. Violent confrontations, I think, have pretty much remained steady over the years. We seem to have, I don't know, 1 or 2 homicides every 3 years or so. We responded to them and addressed them pretty much in the way that we did this one early this year. It's been a quick response, it's been a thorough investigation, and I don't think that we've really done anything different with this last one than we've done with many others before that. Our responses, as far as assessing our responses, I'd like to see a little more training with our detectives, get them a little bit more training in solving and working homicides, especially homicides among the gang culture, so that they can maybe be a little more effective in the way that they investigate them. As far as the Hispanic officers at the office, I think we don't necessarily need to focus on Hispanics so much as bilingual. We have several bilingual officers who are not of Latino heritage, but they are very, very good communicators. Thank you.
Mr. Cooper, you have 1 minute to rebut if you feel compelled, or if you want to do that.
Okay. I don't know if I heard very correctly about having several bilingual officers. I know that they've recently hired a couple of bilingual officers in the jail, but I think the bilingual, bicultural is a key. That's how we communicate with our Hispanic community. I think we can build trust and we can do things to avoid gang problems if we can really get together and communicate culturally with our Hispanic community. We're at 21% right now in our Hispanic community, and that's only going to get higher. We need to act responsibly, and we need to go out, you know, it's ridiculous that College Place has 3 officers, bilingual officers on their civil service list, and we have none. The PD police department here has 5. We can do a better job by going out. I'll actively recruit. If I have to, I will find bilingual officers to get them into our department so that we can serve our community. And that's the promise.
Mr. Turner, 1 minute to rebut.
Unfortunately, the process that Sergeant Cooper just shared with you all would be illegal. He doesn't have the legal authority to appoint. It's a civil service commission process, and the rules are very strict. As far as the reserve deputy program, we've worked very hard to revitalize our program, but the state CJTC is revamping their reserve certification, and we can't move forward until they finalize the certification process in the new academy. And as soon as they do, I have a list of 60 or plus individuals in our community that are very interested in being reserve deputies, and we're very interested in testing them and bringing them on board. We think that that would be great. As far as case clearance rate, I agree. I wish we had more resources. We do the best that we can do, and I think that we do really well. When you compare case clearance rates to the way things have been in the past, I think that we do well. Could we do better? Could we use more? Absolutely. We are always striving to improve. When it comes to training, we sent a new detective to homicide school last year. We always send our gang detective, our gang deputy, and a jail sergeant who's responsible for classification in the jail to the state gang investigators school every year. So I think we do a nice job.
Mr. Blackman, if you want to rebut, you have 1 minute.
I agree with Sergeant Cooper that we need to have better communication with our Hispanic community. I think I've always encouraged my deputies to get to know everybody and appreciate their background when they're dealing with them as far as how they deal with them. We don't tolerate prejudice, we don't tolerate racism, and that's pretty much throughout the agency. I have never seen or haven't seen any what I would call an example of any kind of racist policies or racist practices around here. So as far as hiring a guy just on the basis of skin color, I'm firmly against that. I don't believe in that. I think that people ought to be hired on the basis of their merits and their qualifications.
Thank you. One of you in your answer introduced the idea of morale in the department, which takes us to our next question. And I'd like you to respond in this order. First, Mr. Turner, followed by Mr. Blackman, and then Mr. Cooper. And this is the question. How would you describe the current morale in the Sheriff's Department? How would you compare the current morale in the department with how it was 4 years ago? If it is not as good now as it was then, how would you go about making it better? Mr. Turner, you have 2 minutes.
Morale is important. If the employees of an agency don't have high morale, then you're not going to provide good service. And in our line of work, if you don't have high morale, you're not going to be on your game, and tragedy can strike, either for the public or for the deputies or the jail officers themselves. And we take pride in giving our folks the best training, the best tools possible. I didn't work there 4 years ago, so I can't answer the question about how it was, but I can talk about what I've seen during the last 3.5 years. We've strived very hard to bring the Walla Walla Sheriff's Office into the 21st century. One of the first things that I did as sheriff was met with every single employee and asked them, now that I have this position and I'm honored to be here, what can I do to make your life better? And we compiled a list of the top goals from the employees themselves as to what we could do for them, whether it was getting them into more comfortable, safer uniforms, getting them canines to do their job better, getting them better weaponry, getting them better technology. And we've accomplished everything that they said that they needed and that they wanted. And I'm really proud of that. And I think that morale is up on that. Is there some contentiousness in the office? Obviously. That's just a fact. But that's a minority of the people in the sheriff's office. The vast majority of the men and women that stick their head in my office and give me a bad time and tease me have good morale. They are good men and women that work very hard every day to make this one of the safest and best communities. You know, we enjoy an extremely high quality of life, and we owe a big debt to the men and women that go into harm's way each and every day and do things in the middle of the night that with all due apology, that most of you don't have any concept of what they do. And I have high regard and respect for them, and I'm proud of the way the Sheriff's Office is run.
Thank you. Mr. Blackman, you have 2 minutes to talk about morale in the Sheriff's Department.
Well, I've been with the Sheriff's Office a long enough time to see the morale going up and down over the years. It's been an ebb and flow with different sheriffs. 4 years ago, the morale was a little bit uncertain because Mike Humphreys, frankly, he waited till the last minute to kind of let everybody know he was going to retire. And so there was a lot of uncertainty as to whether or not he would retire, and who might step up and run for the office that would be vacated, and exactly what that would entail. Morale now, I think it's worse than it was 4 years ago, because now there's a lot of guys that are they're not real happy with the way things have gone. They've seen things change from a system where all the deputies knew all the other deputies to where we've got basically 2 separate groups of deputies that don't really interact a lot because they work on opposite days. Once a year, we try to mix that up with a new selection of deputies for different shifts, but in my experience so far in the last 3 years has seen the same guys ending up pretty much under the same supervision. I'm not sure about the joking and the teasing. I haven't seen that myself. I see a lot of people that try to spend as much time outside the office on the road just to avoid interacting with some of the higher-ups. Mr. Cooper, you have 2 minutes.
Well, I've had the pleasure to be the president of the Commission Deputy Sheriff's Association for a long time, probably 13 years. I represent the deputies in a number of different ways, and I can tell you unequivocally that morale has never been lower since I've worked there for 25 years. I'm not saying that the sheriff hasn't done a good job in some areas as far as updating and equipment. I think he's done a fine job in some areas. The problem is when the sheriff came on board, we, Barry Blackman, others, spent a long time, a year or better, getting the sheriff kind of acclimated to this county and to what was going on, to different things that we were dealing with. And as soon as the sheriff got his feet underneath him, boy, oh boy, he started coming after the people that didn't support him in the previous election. And I tell you that as a matter of fact. We've had a number of different officers investigated by other agencies. I think we had 6 officers by 5 different agencies investigated. The sheriff got the FBI apparently to investigate one of our county commissioners. When that sort of thing happens, and I'm not saying whether it was right or wrong, but what do you think happens to the morale in the office? Everybody starts wondering if the bullseye is on their back if they don't fall in line with. If you don't fall in line with what's going on, so it is it's terrible on morale. You want to come to work and know that you're doing a job this dangerous. You want to know that your administration has your back, not that they're going to be throwing darts at your back. I've been in the center of that storm, and you know what? I'm a big boy, and I can stand up and I can take it. And quite frankly, that's why I was sent packing recently. We're going to have a question a little bit later on, and I look forward to answering questions about some of the things that I've gone through. So morale is not good. Under me, I will work with the deputies, and I will do the best job that I can because that's productivity. That's what I aim to do. So thank you.
Mr. Turner, you have 60 seconds to rebut.
Well, obviously, I don't agree with the comments of my opponents. I see it completely differently. Were there some people that were committing really gross misconduct that needed to be looked at? Absolutely. That's one of the worst parts about my job. Is it enjoyable? Absolutely not. Was it necessary? Absolutely it was. There's a reason why every sheriff in this state endorses me for sheriff. There's a reason why the former police chief and the former prosecutor and the retired presiding Superior Court judge, and on and on and on. If you go to our website or look at the endorsers support me, because they understand the important role that I had to play and come in and do. Do I wish I didn't have to? Absolutely. But is morale good now? Absolutely. We make it very clear what the vision, mission, core values, and what the standards are for being a deputy sheriff. You're a peace officer. You're a public servant. That badge that you wear is a symbol of public trust. And I hold myself to that standard, and I don't make apologies for holding other people to that standard as well. I think it's necessary.
Mr. Blackman, we'll give you 60 seconds also.
I've often questioned the standard that you hold yourself to, the standards that you've demonstrated in your work as our sheriff. But that being said, as far as our morale goes, I agree with Sergeant Cooper. It hasn't been lower in my time at the sheriff's office, and that goes back to 1982.
Mr. Cooper, you have 60 seconds and hopefully a microphone that works.
Okay. I don't have any further rebuttal. I think I said it very plainly. All 39 sheriffs, I don't know. I wouldn't go out and get people from outside the county to come in and try and influence people in the county. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't get them from California. I wouldn't get them from all over the state. And quite honestly, if I was a sheriff and another sheriff that I didn't know, or I did know a little bit, came and asked for my endorsement, I would tell them no, because I don't know what the specific circumstances are in this county, and how can I speak to that and endorse somebody if I don't have that specific knowledge? So that's pretty much where I stand on the whole thing.
I'm going to talk now, gentlemen, about the budget, and we will answer this question in this order. Mr. Blackman first, followed by Mr. Cooper, and then Mr. Turner. The question is, we have heard and read a lot about the budget for the Sheriff's Department. What was the total budget for the Sheriff's Department in 2010? What is the total budget for the Sheriff's Department this year, 2014? Why has the budget for the Sheriff's Department increased over the last 4 years? Where has it increased? And then defend or criticize the current budget as you think appropriate. Starting with you, Mr. Blackman.
I don't have the figures for the budget 2010 or 2014. I do know that under Sheriff Turner, the budget has been has expanded by somewhere around $1 million, which is accomplished through the use of reserve funds that he wasn't necessarily entitled to use, and then he would give back funds out of the current expense and talk about how he gave the current expense funds back, as if he was giving money back that he had not used, when in fact he had overspent his budget every year in the 3 years that he's been our sheriff so far.
Mr. Cooper, you have 2 minutes to respond to that multiple-part question about the budget.
Okay, well, current expense, the main portion of the sheriff's budget 2011 was $4.2 million, almost $4.3 million. In 2012, it was $4.7 million, just a little over $4 million and 7,000. 2013 was again a little over $4,735,000. You can see that our budget, the sheriff's budget, has gone up by $500,000 since the sheriff took over in 2011. You're going to need to keep up with expenses, keep up with wages and different things like that. Cars get more expensive, everything gets more expensive. And I don't have a problem in and of itself that the budget has increased a little bit. My problem is the spending and the frivolous spending. We go back to the commissioners and we ask for things like vests and patrol vehicles. We need those things, and I totally appreciate that. What we don't need is to go all throughout the year or toward the end of the year and just start spending money with this use it or lose it mentality. That's not responsible to the taxpayers. I will not do that. I will be fiscally responsible for the taxpayers. I will do everything that I can to turn money back. If I have extra money, if I have $500,000, what I'd like to do is I'd like to go back to 2011 and go to the 4.2 million and take that other $500,000 that we've increased for I don't know exactly what and get more patrol officers. We've gone up $500,000 and we don't have any more patrol officers than we did when the sheriff started. Now, I think part of that has to do with trust and the commissioners lacking a good relationship with the sheriff and having a good trusting relationship with the sheriff. I think if there's a good relationship between the sheriff and the county commissioners, they will be a little bit more flexible and allow him to do, Barry, to do the things that we need to do to keep our county safe.
Mr. Turner, you have 2 minutes to tell us about the budget, past, present, and future.
Thank you. Thank you. I realized I needed these when I asked my wife to read the menu for me. Spending, budgets. First part of the question. In 2010, the current expense budget was 4.2, almost 4.3 million. The Law and Justice Budget Fund was not individually tracked for the different departments. 2013 was 4.7 million, and Law and Justice approved budget was 1.2. That's the approved budget. That's not the actual amount spent. If you total up the actual amount spent in the 3 years that I've been sheriff, there's been over $430,000 of current expense in law and justice funds returned to the taxpayers. If you look at expenditures and a 7-year historical trending of all the different elected offices in the county, you'll see that we're right in par for growth with everyone else. So over the 7 years, the sheriff's office has grown 23.95% cumulatively on money spent. But during that same time period, the coroner's office has gone up 55.79%, the clerk's office has gone up over 32%, the auditor's office 23%, the assessor's office 25%. So when you look at the growth in all the different offices, yes, we're larger, yes, we have more employees, so that equates to more money, but percentage-wise, keeping up with cost of living COLA increases and cost of cars, cost of fuel, delivery of food to the jail, etc., it's right in par. The comment that I dipped into things that I wasn't entitled to is completely false. It's completely illegal. I don't have access to those funds. Every dime that we spend gets approved from the county commissioners, whether it's from a reserve fund or a vehicle fund or an ER&R fund or a law and justice fund or a building maintenance fund. All those things have been requested. There's been a purpose behind them, and the county commissioners have approved them. And we really appreciate it. A lot of the things were very needed. The deputies had expired ballistic vests, and that was one of the first things I asked for. Hey, can we get these guys current vests? And they came through for us.
Mr. Blackman, you have 1 minute to rebut anything said by either of your opponents.
The money that was spent on some of these one-time expenditures was taken out of the tech funds and reserve funds, and there was a little bit of a shell game played where there were 608,000 that was used over 3 years out of reserves, and the sheriff turned back 430,000, and that's what he likes everybody to hear, that he had returned over $430,000 to the taxpayers over his 3 years as a sheriff. What he doesn't mention is that he used 608,000, which leaves a $200,000 deficit as far as his overspending goes.
Mr. Cooper, you have 1 minute to rebut.
And I'll break that down just a little bit further. In 2011, the sheriff turned back $449 rather, but he was over his initial budget by $144,000. So he had his initial budget. He went to the commissioners throughout the year. He got $144,000 more. And I'm not saying whether those things were justified or not. Some of them were vests. Some of them were vehicles. You need those types of things. But he turned back $449 after getting $144,000 additional funds. So it's a little disingenuous to say that I turn back money all the time. He's been over his initial budget every year. And again, it's not the expenditures that I have a problem with. It's the frivolous spending throughout the years, the 3 years that I've noticed. I mean, 1 year, I inventoried $21,000 worth of supplemental taser equipment. Five brand new tasers for the command staff. I've never seen the command staff necessarily strap on a taser and go out to the crime scene and try to take somebody down. And I think that those types of spending are frivolous.
Thank you, gentlemen. Our next question will be answered in this order.
Do I get a rebuttal?
No, you don't. Yes, I'm sorry. I wanted to see how the sheriff would handle it, or any woman who's not going to get in the front. Now we know. I'm sorry, Mr. Turner. You have a minute.
Well, I'd love 1 minute for a rebuttal to talk to you about these really complicated matters. So you have one guy up here saying yes, he did. The bottom line is what you're hearing isn't exactly accurate. They do not portray the proper figures or the things that were purchased. Were our tasers expired and did we need new ones? Absolutely. Did Microsoft stop their security processes on Windows XP and drop it on us and we needed to beg for money to upgrade to Windows 7 so we could still have access to criminal justice databases? Absolutely, we did. But my opponent, Mr. Cooper, has said that watch caps for when the $30.32 a piece watch caps when the deputy said were cold was frivolous. He said that the purchasing of scopes was frivolous. I want deputies to hit their target and survive if we knock on wood never have a gun battle. That's important to me. It's my job to advocate for their safety and to advocate for your safety. When I became sheriff, the county current expense was 37% in reserve. And I approached them and said, can we spend some of that money and bring us back down to the mandated 25%? And I think many county offices benefited from that.
And that was your sentence, and I apologize for not initially allowing you to rebut. Our next question concerns the legalization of marijuana. We will answer this question, Mr. Cooper, Mr. Turner, and then Mr. Blackman. And the question for each of you is, did you or did you not inhale? That was really intended as a joke. For those of you who are listening at home, there were panic books here on the This is really the question, and it does concern legalized marijuana. How do you think the passage of I-502 and the legalization of marijuana will impact and/or change drug activity in Walla Walla County? What does the Sheriff's Department need to do to be prepared to respond to these changes? Mr. Cooper, you are first.
Well, I think it's going to have a significant effect on every community, and I think especially as it pertains to driving offenses. Right now, we have a pretty definitive way to go out and arrest and hold accountable people that are driving while intoxicated. We're going to have to go through a whole gambit of training officers all throughout the state. That's going to be very, very expensive to get people up to speed to be able to recognize and determine whether or not they've been driving under the influence of marijuana. I don't know, the law itself is the law, and the job of the sheriff isn't necessarily to interpret the law, it's to carry out the law. And while a lot of law enforcement officers might not agree with the legalization of marijuana, that's really not our job. We're just supposed to go out, follow the law, hold people accountable as we will, and move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. You have 2 minutes to respond to that question.
Thank you. The passage of I-502, which is the legalization of recreational marijuana, the possession of it an ounce or less, has really complicated things. In law enforcement, we're seeing different arenas in which we need to deal with this. The first one is just the enforcement of laws. One of the biggest things that came to mind is all the narcotics canines in the state were trained in the big four: marijuana, meth, cocaine, and heroin. It's really impacted the use of those dogs because now no longer on a straight sniff can we get probable cause for a warrant. We need a straight sniff plus one. And that's really impacted local law enforcement. I could share a story with you about Gunner's dog, but it really has hemmed us up. Then we're dealing with, right now, zoning issues for the growers, the producers, the processors to process the product, and retail locations. The last few months I worked with the Planning Commission for their recommendations to the county commissioners, and I think they did a nice job with their recommendations. They asked me to do research, and during that research, one of the things that I learned is, we have had medical marijuana in the county, and those have been targeted locations for some crime. We've had a residential robbery, we had an individual tied up and beaten, we have had shots fired, we've had those locations broken into, and now we're talking about growing that industry with an attractive product to steal, and the federal government has told us there will be no guns at that location to protect those locations. So it's a sticky wicket. 58% of the people in this county voted against I-502, and the Attorney General recently told us that counties have the right to ban it if they want to, as far as production, processing, and retail. And it's going to be going in front of our county commissioners, and I don't envy them at all. That is a tough one. But Commissioner Johnson has already asked me my stance on it, and we met, and my recommendation to him was ban it. Let's let things work out in other areas of the state. There's going to be lots of lawsuits. Let's not get sucked into that. Let's wait and see. Let's not further potentially victimize people. Let's not put marijuana in our community and our kids. Let's hold off on that process right now and see how this comes out.
Blackman, you have 2 minutes to respond to the issue of legalized marijuana.
Well, marijuana being legalized is certainly something that we're going to have to contend with. And as Sergeant Cooper said, it's going to impact a lot of our DUI laws and how they're applied and how they're enforced. We're also going to see, I think, an upswing in the use of marijuana by juveniles, because they're going to have mom and dad growing the stuff and using it for their recreation. I think that nothing good is going to come of it, but it is the law. And so I would certainly want to work with the county commissioners and get, figure out the way that the zoning rules can be used to help try and minimize the production and the use of it, and then enforce the laws that remain as aggressively and as strictly as we can. I am a firm believer in treatment versus incarceration in drug offenses for the most part, and marijuana is one of those that's included. As far as, I think that's it.
Mr. Cooper, if you want to make any rebuttal comments, you have 1 minute. All right, Mr. Turner, if you want to make any rebuttal comments, you have 1 minute.
Thank you, and it's just a clarification. When Sergeant Blackman said that now because of I-502 you'll have mom and dad growing it, that's still going to be illegal. You still need to be licensed by the state to grow it, to produce it. You need to be licensed by the state under the WAC to be a processor, to process it, to package it, to move it on to a retailer. You need to be licensed by the state. In our county, the State Liquor Control Board has told us that there's going to be 4 locations, 2 in the city of Walla Walla, 2 anywhere else. So it could be Walla Walla, Prescott, Wakeford, the county, you name it. So we'd have 4 places to deal with. And I know that there's been applicants for that, but again, I'm opposed to it right now, currently, and I hope that the county commissioners will join me in banning it.
And Mr. Blackman, you have 1 minute. If you want to rebut or add any additional comment.
I'm sure that if mom and dad are growing it illegally, that would be the very first time we've ever seen that in this community. Anyway, my point is it's going to encourage the use of it, because a lot of people think it's legal and that they can use it and produce it in any way that they feel like they want to.
The next question will be answered in this order. Mr. Turner first, followed by Mr. Blackman, and then Mr. Cooper, and this is the question. All 3 of you have spent a significant portion of your careers in law enforcement. You have told us this evening and in other forums and on your websites about your accomplishments, your talents, and your achievements. Over the course of your law enforcement career, what has been your biggest professional failure? Why was it a failure, and what lesson or lessons did you learn from that failure? Starting with you, Mr. Turner.
Well, I often wonder if I had stayed on the LAPD and not retired early and to become an attorney, how that would have turned out. I still have many friends that are on the job, and I have high regard for that agency. That is a world-class agency, and I've often wondered whether that was a mistake or not, because it was a good place to work. And I don't know if that's a failure or not, but it is something that I have indeed thought about. When it comes to failures here, probably my biggest failure is how I've handled the demotion of Barry Blackman. And we tried really hard to approach that with kit gloves so that he could go back to being a sergeant with his ego and his pride intact. And that has backfired on me. He has recalled things differently than myself and my command staff recalled them. And it's really a shame that it's gotten that way. I have high respect for Barry Blackman. He's a good man. And I never meant to hurt him, and I definitely never meant to make this the kind of issue it was. In hindsight, what I should have done is I should have been more businesslike, and I should have called it what it was and taken care of business, and I didn't. In hindsight, I wish I had. But again, that was talked about a lot as to how we were going to handle that decision. Because the decision had been made, it was just how about going about doing it. And that's a learning process. And the fact that it's backfired on me, I'll take the hit on that one. I wish that we'd handled it differently. But I don't regret or change my mind on the decision. Many deputies have told me that bringing in Chief Deputy John King, of all the positive accomplishments I've had, is the best one we've had. The guys, I see a head nod in the audience. He's been really world-class at taking us to another level. And he's a tremendous Chief Deputy, and I'm really proud that he's on our team.
Mr. Blackman, you have 2 minutes to tell us about a professional failure and what you learned from it.
Well, I hate to make this a back and forth, but my biggest failure was in 2010 when I met a gentleman and really didn't get to know him very well, and ended up actually encouraging him and supporting him in running for sheriff, which he eventually won that office with the help of myself and my family. Then he turned around and 2 years later wanted to bring another one of his friends, another one of his, I guess a former supervisor or something like that from LA. He wanted to bring him up, give him a job, and he asked me to step aside so that we could create an open position for this gentleman. And then when Under Sheriff Fryer resigned, then he would reassign me back into the position that I vacated that he put this other guy into. I like Chief King. He's been a good guy to work for. I've got no complaints about him. We have a lot in common. We have the same birthday. He's a good guy. I have no complaints about him at all. He's done a good job since he's been there. The point is Sheriff Turner has completely misrepresented the whole process that he used to reassign me. And had he had just done what he said he should have done, we probably wouldn't be sitting here tonight. At least I wouldn't be sitting here tonight.
Mr. Cooper, any professional failures, and what did you learn from them, or it?
Well, there's been plenty of failures. Besides the microphone, there's been plenty of failures in my career. That's what